Coach BK. Today's topic is Sibo. Sibo being small intestine bacteria overgrowth. We need to know about this. We need to know what it is, the smart words, how to get tested for it, what it contributes to. It's under talked about, under tested. It can really have a large impact long term with gut health, which, as you guys are learning, if you have some sort of underlying condition going on, a lot of other things are affected. So let's do a quick kind of down and dirty on what Sibo is, what you can kind of look for, and then some smart words, how to get it tested, and just a general idea of how to fix it. Okay, so again, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. It's not a bad bacteria overgrowth. It's a good bacteria overgrowth. It's just in the wrong place. So if you watch the gut functionality kind of 101 lesson video, you'll understand that the body is designed, it's a magical thing throughout the whole track of what it's doing. And so what's happening in Sibo is that good bacteria are getting into a place that they're not supposed to be, and because of that, they can take advantage and overgrow, and then it just causes a slew of issues. So the bacteria that we're talking about, good bacteria, what's happening is that it's getting into the small intestines. Okay, so this bacteria is meant to be in the colon, in the large intestines, not in the small intestines. So this bacteria is flourishing in the small intestines for a number of reasons, mostly because in the small intestines, that's where we are doing our absorption of carbohydrates, aka quick sugar, quick fuel for the bacteria. So when they're there, the reason why they're overgrowing so well is because they have it's a nutrient dense environment for them. And so the bacteria just kind of overgrows because there's just so much food available. And that's kind of a double whammy or a triple whammy. There's lots of whammies that happen after that. The bacteria, in its metabolic process of taking your carbohydrates, it releases gases, and so that's what's causing the bloating, gas, nausea, vomiting, and cramping that is the main list of the symptoms of Sibo. The other thing that's going to happen, and contrary to a lot of belief, is that you do need carbohydrates, and so this bacteria is going to steal your carbohydrates and steal nutrients that your gut needs, the cells of your gut needs, your body needs, your brain needs, everybody needs it. So the implication to this is, if you're training and racing, this is a factor. I mean, just think about it just for a second. If you have a colony of bad bacteria in a place that it's not supposed to be, and it's robbing you of nutrients, it's like the two dogs, one dog's starving because the other dog's a hog. That's what's going on in your small intestines with the carbohydrates. You need carbohydrates, okay? You need carbohydrates in order to utilize the protein that you're eating. So if we're eating protein but we have Sibo, oh my gosh, are we actually utilizing the protein because we don't have enough carbohydrates, or we're not absorbing and utilizing the carbohydrates that we think we're eating and absorbing because we have this rogue colony of bacteria in our small intestines causing problems? Okay. Another thing is that this gas and the metabolic process of these bacteria is inflammatory. So it just causes just like a cascade effect of issues, and we'll go over that in a second. Along with carbohydrates, malabsorption, absorption, you're going to get lack in B12 specifically. Folks with Sibo are going to have an issue with not getting enough B12. The bacteria is what makes B12, and so this whole process goes completely awry. So then if you add into the fact that maybe you're a vegetarian and not getting enough B12 anyway, so some of these things kind of compound on itself. Additionally, Fats are going to be harder to break down when you have SIBO. So you become deficient in fat-soluble vitamins. And then just the whole process of not getting the fats that you need can probably lead to hormonal imbalance issues. See the cascade effect, okay? Contribute to leaky gut. The inflammation that's happening when SIBO is going on, this overgrowth of bacteria in the wrong place, causes inflammation with the tight junctions of the intestinal lining and affecting permeability, aka adding to leaky gut, which has just a whole different gambit of issues, okay? Another thing that SIBO can do is damage the villi. Remember in our gut anatomy class, the villi are little fingers in the gut lining to increase surface area because you need to absorb as many nutrients and whatnot as possible. And so when the villi gets damaged, causes further absorption issues, and this would be across the board, like everything that you're doing. Magnesium, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and then another thing that SIBO is going to do is it's going to cause inflammation and thinning of the mucosal lining, which again, going back to the Gut 101 anatomy class, is not great either. So anyway, there we go. So this overgrowth is kind of like a big darn deal. So the nutrition school that I go through says that SIBO is becoming more and more of an issue, and we aren't asking enough questions, or the MD world isn't asking enough questions. The list of symptoms is kind of vague and can go with a lot of different things. So that's why, you need to know some of these things, asking lots of questions and whatnot. The statistics right now, currently 64% of people going to GI specialists are finding that SIBO is involved. And they're currently saying that 60% of folks with IBS is caused by or can be tracked to an incident of SIBO. So the symptoms of SIBO, I'm going to give you two lists. One is kind of from the MD world. Pain in the stomach, especially after eating, bloating, cramps, diarrhea, constipation, indigestion, regular feeling of fullness, gas, fatigue, anemia, and brain fog. Okay. Another list of more of the kind of lifestyle health coaching, more rounded nutrition type stuff. Rosacea, depression, asthma, eczema, acne, rash, fatigue, joint pain, weight loss, malnutrition, vomiting, diarrhea, nausea, and bloating. So how many times has someone gone in and kind of talked about issues with asthma, and 2 or 3 questions are asked, but is anybody asking about gut health? I mentioned prior in a leaky gut talk about my husband Derek with his eczema on his hand, probably from military and antibiotic usage or whatnot. So eczema is on this list too. But leaky gut, SIBO, if left unchecked, both will go hand in hand. If you have an incident of SIBO, you're going to have leaky gut just because of it's the cascade. Anyway, so if you need to reread, go to the link that is included in the video notes, okay? Causes. This was really enlightening for me as an engineer. So probably one of the main causes of SIBO is a deficiency in the MMC, and the MMC is the migrating motor complex. So what's going on is your GI tract is incredibly long, and it squeezes in sequence of each other. And so there's a couple of different ways that things move through. But in this case, what we're talking about, this MMC, is a series of movements, contractions to move food particles and bacteria out of the stomach and small intestines. So please know that everything we put in our mouth isn't as clean as what we think, and we don't need to stress on it being clean. The body and the immune system are designed to take care of it. It's just when the MMC is not working correctly, things get stuck, food particles and leftover bacteria that haven't been taken care of or aren't taken care of for a deficient reason of deficiency. You get the point. You end up with bacteria in the small intestines where it's not supposed to be. Okay. The MMC works between meals. The MMC works between meals. So the moment that food is in the mouth, the MMC stops. This is a really interesting kind of conversation and thought. So back 15 years when I had my colic reflex baby, they were constantly wanting to breastfeed to fix the surface problems of too much stomach acid coming up. He had silent GERD. So it was burning here. Breastfeeding helped coat this because it's base, and up here it's not designed to be dealing with stomach acid, pH, and so antacids and breast milk help to calm that. But the fact that you immediately start eating, the MMC stops. The belly is full, the MMC stops, so that means that things aren't flowing through right, and so you have more acid reflux. That's in the toddler, the colic babies, which is just completely fascinating. And we'll get back to some conversation where antacids and typical medications for reflux aren't really doing us a lot of good when we're talking about this type of functionality. Okay, so the MMC, the migrating motor complex, how your intestines works to get food particles and etc. from point A to point B, works in kind of a cyclical fashion. So every 90 to 120 minutes, it's generally a 2-hour process to do things. And what it's doing is it's sweeping food particles and bacteria and kind of this whole digestion. I can't remember what it's called in this particular phase. The name of the food stuff changes as it goes through. Sweeps it out of the small intestines and into the colon where it belongs. Okay. The MMC is most stunted by probably eating all the time, since we just said that the moment you start chewing on something, the MMC will stop. But the MMC is most stunted by food poisoning and diabetes. Okay. So in the case of food poisoning, whatever caused the food poisoning, being a virus, bacteria, parasite, whatever, gives off a toxin, and the toxin causes deficiencies in the movement or causes nerve damage that causes deficiencies in the movement, slowing down the MMC. Okay. So it kind of compounds on itself. And you know why these viruses and bacteria give off this toxin? So you can't get rid of it. So it can like find itself a home and be happy. So the virus, bacteria, whatever, this toxin, they are designed to keep you sick so it can grow in your small intestines. And again, the lack of movement due to the toxin, due to whatever, due to you eating, this lack of movement of the MMC will cause these particles, this bacteria, to stay here, and then it'll overgrow. So diabetes, the reason why diabetes is kind of hurting the MMC is that it causes nerve damage that results in slower MMC functionality movement. Okay, so we're not going to delve much into that, but it's clear. So eating too frequently, as we've already talked about, can alter these MMC waves. So if you're not eating, you're cleaning. If you're eating, you're not cleaning. Okay. And this is this is probably why one of the kind of the ideas that intermittent fasting is good, because you're taking intentional times where you're not eating. Okay. A second reason for Sibo is a deficiency in the valve between the small and the large intestine. When this valve isn't working right, it allows kind of like a reflex type action to happen, where the food particles and intestines and food particles and bacteria are ending up in the large intestine, and that valve isn't working right, and it allows a backflow into the small intestines. So things that damage this valve, infection, parasite, other issues with undigested foods. Okay. Number 3, structural defects from surgery or diverticulitis. So what we're talking about is pouches form in the small intestines and the lining in the walls where bacteria can make a home and grow. Okay, so think about, I don't know, your plumbing, right? So everything's supposed to be smooth and moving, and so when you get a pouch for one reason or another, then the bacteria kind of hides in there. And then obviously when you're squeezing that pouch, a little pouch coming off, kind of like, you know, an acne kind of idea, the MMC is not going to be able to clean out that bacteria that's stuck there. So then it's going to overgrow. It's going to sit there and feed on things that are rolling through there. And then it's going to overgrow, and it's going to create inflammation in that area. Okay. The causes behind these pouches really aren't that known yet. Some people are thinking that a diet low in fiber are contributing, or constipation when the stool is hard and the colon has to overexert itself. That they're thinking that that can weaken the intestinal wall and cause these pouches to form. Diverticulitis is where inflammation occurs due to this bacteria overgrowth and stress on the gut lining, the gut environment. Most cases of diverticulitis do not form in the small intestines though. Okay, so most cases of diverticulitis, the pouches that get inflamed in the gut lining don't start or don't form in the small intestines. So this particular smarty was saying that intestinal surgery, including stomach stapling, can make an individual have a risk of developing Sibo. That's a word just like whoop out of my head. Okay. A fourth reason for Sibo: compromised digestion due to stomach acid not being correct and low digestive enzymes. So stomach acid can normally kill off all unwanted bacteria. That's why it's designed the way it is, where it's supposed to be at. When the stomach acid is off, it can't do its job. So then you can understand why there would be more bacteria involved. So then if something else was going on, there was more bacteria there in the first place. The use of antacids and the proton and pump inhibitors, acid reflux medications, actually make this problem worse. They alter the pH of the stomach. They make it more basic. And so you're not killing off as much bacteria as what you need to be, what you're designed to. So long term, it's not helping. Okay. And reflux is sort of, again, trying to address kind of the painful area where the stomach acid gets to, instead of where it's supposed to stay at and function at. Okay. So, again, any medication that affects the pH of the stomach acid, making it higher, less acidic, is going to kill less bacteria and is going to raise the risk of getting Sibo, because there's going to be more bacteria present in the substance moving through. So if you were taking an antacid and had a weakened immune system, or an antacid and had a habit of eating all the time, like frequently, see how, adding them up, adding the risk to it. Fifth, a weakened immune system. So normally the immune system can take care of unwanted bacteria. when they grow in the wrong places, or the toxins that they produce during their metabolic process. If the immune system is low, there isn't enough resources in order to handle everything going on. So if you're under chronic stress has been shown, proven, is a fact to lower the immune system. So now your weakened immune system will affect the MMC functionality directly. But then also, say like you get sick from the weakened immune system, you can't fight off, say, some sort of bug, and then you take an antibiotic. That antibiotic from stress or from the weakened immune system then sets the area up to be vulnerable to, it wipes out all your good bacteria, so something else coming along or bad bacteria takes off. And so it's kind of a double, triple whammy whenever you take an antibiotic and you have some of these factors and whatnot. It just kind of gets out of control, and the risk of getting Sibo is pretty high. Okay. Sorry about the dogs barking. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Sibo is stubborn and can reoccur. Some studies are showing that the reoccurrence rate is as high as 45%. So reoccurrence can happen within a couple of days, weeks, or months. So that couple of days idea is when someone has some sort of structural thing going on. It's boom, it's back. The couple of weeks, couple of months idea is when someone is having more of the issue is with the MMC, the functionality of getting the food particles rolling through here. They're even saying that 70 to 80% of Sibo cases and recurrence of Sibo is from MMC issues. And so what we're talking about is this motility, okay? And then we already talked about what affects motility. There's a lot of things that affect motility. So it's not just course of treatment to get rid of Sibo. You need to get rid of the underlying cause of why you had it in the first place, okay? So repairing gut health, repairing this motility is critical. Risk factors, certain things that kind of stand out with folks at risk for getting Sibo. We already talked about folks with having intestinal stomach surgery, Crohn's, diabetes, scleroderma, HIV, Parkinson's, hypothyroidism. I found that interesting. Medications that slow down the bowel, narcotics. And interestingly enough, I'm reading a little bit, and it makes sense in my mind, like if you were low in magnesium or something you were low in that would cause less motility of the muscles in the intestines. So one of the reasons why magnesium helps with bowel movements is that it stimulates muscle contraction. So kind of a anecdotal, but okay. So okay, fine. All this information is great, and I looked on this list of symptoms, and I'm wondering if I have it, and go to this you need to go to your doctor on. This you can't self-diagnose, because if you do have Sibo, you will have to be on medication in order to take care of it, but it needs to be done in the correct way. You just don't go into the doctor and boom, okay? The way that doctors will test for Sibo, and you can do this at home, it's pretty easy, is doing a breath test. So the bacteria, overgrowth of bacteria releases hydrogen and methane. So if you go into this test fasted, and then they'll have you drink some stuff and feed the bacteria and all that good stuff. And they'll test it through bacteria testing, breath testing, testing bacteria. There we go. And you would imagine that they would also do other testing like blood testing, fecal testing, and whatnot. Okay. So fixing Sibo needs to be done with a trusted health partner, medical, functional doctor, and then, your nutrition coach, life coach can help you with the other side of it, of getting rid of the Sibo, but then fixing why it happened in the first place. Okay. And that's totally critical, because again, we were talking about the reoccurrence rate of Sibo is stupid high. 45%, that's 50% of people almost. Half the people are going to get a reoccurrence of it, and that's because they're not fixing the problem. The symptom is Sibo, but it's a problem too. But the main reason is, why'd you get it in the first place? Okay. So number one on fixing Sibo, healing up from Sibo specifically, is feed the gut bacteria to bring them out and then medicate them. So there's like kind of this series of how you eat. You want to feed the bacteria. The medication given to fix Sibo is done best, most effective when the bacteria is happy. They come out, they're da-da-da-da-da, okay? Number two, a low residual diet, carbohydrate, fiber type stuff, less fiber to work on the root cause. So less fiber, and this is not a long-term diet solution, period, okay? But the less fiber, the low residual diet starves off bacteria. So you get rid of it, then you starve it off so you don't get a reoccurrence, and then you go into number three, which is lifestyle changing. So to support, heal, repair the MMC, this migrating motor complex, and so what you're trying to do is fix that, and you're trying to work on gut flora, gut health, getting everybody where they're supposed to be at the right time, okay? So kind of ideas behind that are space out your meals, several hours between meals, 3 meals a day, avoid snacking, avoid meals at least 3 hours before bed. If you don't do that, you're digesting food and you're not cleaning when you're sleeping, okay? There's another tidbit that I want to add before we're done here is natural antimicrobials. There's some foods that you can add into your diet. And I just posted something on the team page about lemon water with lavender in it. Lavender is an antibacterial as well, so it's not on this list, but it should be. Cinnamon, Indian barberry, lemon balm, neem, oregano, red thyme, all of those are natural antimicrobials. If you work on improving your immune system and keeping your immune system strong, this is important. You work on stress management and deal with life in a way such that the stress doesn't compromise the immune system. And a lot of the time when we're stressed, we're not eating right, so we're not feeding the body right, etc., etc. So you can, if you pause and just think about it for a second, it's kind of like a perfect storm situation, but it's very common. Very common. How many times are we eating late at night and then going to bed? How many times are we eating all the time in certain times of the day? Like you're not eating at all during the day and then you eat like nonstop all night long. That's not what you need to be doing either. Just a lot of different reasons, and this is why it's becoming more prevalent, but we're not asking the right questions and we're not addressing it right yet. So just information for you, not diagnosing anybody, just trying to give you smart words. If you have questions, email me, contact me, join us on the Tri Club. We're trying to educate our folks because you need to know this stuff because as an athlete, you are putting yourself under stress. Even if it's good stress, it's still stress. And the gut is still under a fair amount of stress. Dealing with the heat is stress. Dealing with being on a bike, doing this, doing that, all of that is stress. So just be mindful of how you're eating matters, and your nutrients that you're adding in matters. And then if you have, suspect that, you've got chronic bloating issues all the time or some of the things on here, go to your doctor and ask smart questions. And if he doesn't have a smart conversation with you, then maybe go to a different doctor. Hope you're having a great day. Namaste.